Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they are new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, today we are going to be taking a look at a big series that released its fourth episode today. We are talking about the series AIF, also known as A is 4. Alright, it is created by Chorata, or at least it is uploaded to the Chorata channel primarily. I'm sure it has a lot of workers in it. It originally started about 1 year ago, and as I said a couple of days ago, it had episode 4 release. I couldn't quite take a look at it immediately because I was doing the episode 50 special for Overload, which was certainly cool. So yeah, we are going to be watching it. Before I watch that, I am going to be prefacing one little quick thing. There was the second portion of Objectcember releasing, which I'm not mistaken was BFTDI 12. However, I think for now this is a little bit bigger of a deal. And BFTDI is such a big, it's a big one. I think it's the biggest section of Objectcember in terms of things that I have to watch, right? Like it's episode 12, right, which is pretty significant. So we're gonna give it a little bit, but I'm definitely gonna cover it. I'm pretty confident that I can get to it, but first we're gonna get to this, and then we're gonna get to that. All right, in a future day. All right. Anyways, AS4 has 4 episodes, however they're all relatively big, so presumably it's the only thing that we're gonna be taking a look at today. We're gonna start off here with the first episode released. I mean, it says 1 year ago. 478,000 views. AS4 1, also titled Astronomical Ambush, half an hour long. Let's hit it, let's watch it, let's talk about it, let's do all that stuff. Hello, I have come back from watching A is for 1, alright, which is not going to be confusing to say at all. It's kind of difficult when the name gets cut off, but anyways, we have an interesting series here. It has been a while since we've taken a look at what I'm probably gonna call an animatic style of series. It has been a bit since we've looked at one. We've haven't really gone to this side a style of show for quite a bit. So we're gonna need to get a little bit more acclimatized, just a little bit again. But first of all, immediately shout out to subtitles for existing, for being the high level subtitles. I remember praising this type of subtitles. They were present throughout Animatic Battles 1 to 3, which was very cool. And I'm an enjoyer. And when they have it, they're just a big experience enhancement. You can see the care put into them. They're cool. They're fire. Shout out to the subtitles. Don't know who made them. I think it said it, but I forgot to read it. My bad. But it's cool. But anyways, we have ourselves some characters. Of course, this is an episode 1 of a big audio show, which means that we need to, of course, have ourselves a big setup of characters here. We end up having who do we start with? We start with Smokey, and also the other fella. What even? You're like a string. But in general, it seems like Smokey can get understood by people as one of those characters who seems to speak in a way that we don't really get, because they speak in beeps and boops, but they either don't understand or we're pretending that we understand, right? Because this is an important distinction that you have to make with characters like the smoke detector here, because it's like, okay, so they speak in beeps. Are these people actually capable of understanding the beeps in terms of what they actually say, or are we just guessing that's what we mean, and smoke detector has no way of ever being like, no, that's incorrect, right? But it seems like we are being capable of understanding, because there are a couple of characters that speak in gibberish, right? So we need to kind of have that knowledge. Or does our cast actually understand, or is our cast pretending to understand, right? Eventually we end up having Fishy, which is a little bit of a goofy character. There's who do we have? Double dodecahedron, and then we have Mailbox. I don't. This episode was interesting because I feel like looking into these characters, we haven't. I haven't exactly yet gotten to like shape my vision of them. You know, I'm looking at them right here, and it's like, how did the mailbox act? I don't really know. You know, like it's been a little bit. I'm not exactly really calculated everybody yet because even though this episode is half an hour long, it's a very split half hour. You know, we didn't lock in too much on any specific character, but we're gonna lock in it. So they play Monopoly. Then we have the Cup of Joe, which it has a very epic accent with the fishbowl. Fishbowl has a hand that's super stretchy. We're kind of winter vibes, you know, kind of winter style, singular hand. Tide Potty is interesting enough a choking hazard, as in they make people choke, which is fun because haha, you get the joke was that you can't eat Tide Pods because you were it caused kids to choke, it's bad, so you don't do that. So then they're a character that makes people choke and everything, right? So that's like the idea, which the Tide Potty like represents in a way. So I get it. It's interesting. We try to have a machine that like we make a mind reading machine, which does it work? We tried. It tries to work, but it Cup Joe doesn't understand it, so we give it to the word salad, which, however, gets horrified by it. So maybe word salad very much so understood, or maybe they just heard garbled noises and was like, "Shit, that's my language," because it's word salad. But hey, word salad, and it's like oh my god, bro, it's like they speak in gibberish and they've got the letters in the word salad. You know what I really hope is they do with word salad? Okay, they've got all of the letters in the bowl, right? But they're all within their own, right? I really hope that like if you took out a letter from the word salad, that they can't use that letter anymore. I really hope that's a detail about this character because that would be cool as hell. I was like, yo, please do that. That would be fire. I don't think that's they're doing that, but it would be cool if they did. um, I like how we have invented mind reading machines before we invented planes. Like everybody's queuing up to go to the first airplane, and it's a gigantic paper airplane. Okay, cool. What? How did we do it? How did we invent mind reading before airplanes? But all right. Um, they end up going on the airplane, and they all die. Because they flew, but then they all died. The freaking Tangerine wasn't even on there. Okay, so we get into a little bit of a situation, all right, is that Tangerine is the character that we get to figure out the most of because everybody has a very clear opinion on Tangerine. Tangerine has bad luck somehow, but Tangerine has been cursed by the devil or whatever the hell, uh, and just has bad luck, which means that nobody likes them, really hates them, racism, doing all that stuff. However, it does seem that Tangerine does genuinely have powers to a certain extent. Like majority of the time, they're getting blamed for stuff that they're not doing. However, they seem to also be able to actually do things if they want. So that's like interesting. Um, but yeah, then we have the group of people who even one of them was called Filler, which is interesting because I guess why are you called Filler? I don't know what that is. That just looks like a cup. Yeah, I don't really know what that is. But then we got a landscape, a pillow, a cat that I think is just called Meow. Um, so yeah, then we have Melanie, who's a phone user and is hanging out with some with a green apple fella, which is interesting. They kind of hang out despite the fact that they're not really that the Green Apple doesn't seem too convinced by the tactics, by Melanie over here. However, it's like I mean, sure, they're both green, so yeah. Then we have Recovery Cube, who's apparently a contestant, and then the treasure chest is being very motherly to to the recovery cube. It's like, hey, it puts a lot of strain on the recovery cube to recover people. Please apologize. And I was like, okay, I mean, I guess we can do that. um the recovery cube, you see, like for example, this is another example. Recovery cube doesn't necessarily speak, can I think move if I'm not mistaken. However, like it's the question of yo, does treasure chest actually like understand how what is going on with recovery cube? Like, is what she's saying true? Is it correct? Like when it says, "Oh, treasure recovery cube forgives you," like, is she making that shit up on behalf of recovery cube, or are we actually understanding? Because it's important. Like, does somebody understand? Are we understanding word salad, or are we saying words for them? Right? Are we understanding the recovery cube, or are we saying words for them? Right? Do we understand the other character or not? Right? Like, it's important that those are elements that we see. By the way, there's also another. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. When I first saw it, I thought that they were the same character. I'm not gonna lie. Their designs are like exceedingly similar to a hilarious degree. So there's like word salad, and then there's like shape salad. What are they even called? I don't know if we know who they're called, who they're called though, because like, yeah, wait, squeaky toy. Wait a minute. Oh no, yeah, squeaky toy, yeah, the dog toy. Okay, wait. So there's this shape salad thing. They're apparently the kid of some like soup, some like ramen bowl, some soup bowl, right? Which I think is fun, but I don't. Yeah, it's like a soup, and then the kid of the soup is like a shape bowl. There's also a mini USB that, of course, you give the smallest character the deepest voice in the cast. That's always fun. Elderberry, who is a blueberry that's very old. That's kind of the, the wisdom character. Oh, I am an elder, and I can barely move. So they're doing that. Tangerine eventually goes to the timeout corner because everybody, except for like this bread character, which has a different style of drawings to them. They have the like circular uh black eyes rather than the line eyes that everybody else usually has. So they're kind of interesting. But they're eventually in the timeout corner because you have to listen to the elderberry, and then they're all in there with Nuki, who is a nuke. You know, there's not too much to say. They're a nuke. They're sort of like, bro, come on, I don't, bro, I'm just out here. I'm like, I didn't choose to be a nuke. So they're kind of interesting, to be honest. I like Nuki. Nuki was a pretty interesting character. I like Brady, and then there's freaking Roundabout the character, which that was fun. As soon as I saw that, I was like, what? that might have been the most surprise cast reveal that I've had in the show, because it's so funny. It's like, in like the Sim City or whatever, when you're like building the city and you have to like put in the plot of land. It's like, oh yes, I want to add a roundabout here, and then you're adding like the square of the roundabout, so it literally looks like that. So that's kind of fun. Um, but eventually, apparently, what happened was that um freaking the roundabout was getting run over on because roundabout, gotta run on it, gotta play games, because characters in large cast object shows are like 6 years old. Have you ever noticed that like large cast object shows, or like this style of object show, like, like, okay, debatably you could consider this not a large cast. I don't know if I would consider it. Is 32 a large cast? That's an interesting question. It's right. It's smack that in the middle, right? Because usually because I feel like it's a larger cast than you'd expect. It's of course half of BFB, which makes it quite a bit less. I generally consider a large cast like usually over 40, but this is definitely over like, the 20 that you'd usually see for a season, right? So I find it interesting, like whether we consider this a large cast object show or a medium cast object show. I'm gonna consider this like a pretty big cast object show. Right? I think it quantifies in the discussion, especially considering its inspirations. It's kind of animatic battle at its core. It's kind of BFB at its core, right? It's got that vibe to it, as part of its soul. So I kind of respect it. But anyways, like, have you ever noticed that characters in these RJ shows, because of of course their inspiration and stuff, they're all like 12. They're all at 12. They're all like, because, like, at the end of the day, it's really easy to forget that like characters in BFDI are like 2 years old. Like if not necessarily like they literally are 2 years older than kind of, but like they act like it. Like one of the biggest debates in BFDIA right now is, oh, you didn't let me go on this swing, and now I'm gonna be all sad and murder Book with a drill. Like that's what they've been doing. And this has it as well because like, oh, we're gonna be playing Monopoly, and oh, we're gonna be playing Ring Around the Rosie, and no, we're gonna be singing Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like these are the types of things that we play around here. Um, which I always find kind of interesting in these shows, how like the average age of character, or like the mental age of character, right, not physical, like the mental age of character just feels like it's just lower. Anyways, they sneeze, and apparently when Roundabout sneezes, they shoot everybody into the moon because they have the most powerful sneeze of all time, which is interesting. Well, it's not necessarily into the moon, just into the very far away. Um, there were some people already on the moon, the people that sneezed before, which is a Pillow, I think the peanut butter and cheese. And then you know what? I've been trying. I don't. Do they say the name of the friend of the fucking peanut butter? Yeah, right. Not the friend, but like the person they keep interacting. Because like, oh, come on, PBC, we're joining the team. You should join the show. Because I was just trying to figure out the entire time what you are, and you know what? I don't know. You know what? I don't. You're like a bag with two microphones hanging out of it. I don't know what that is. But yeah. Eventually, the nuke ends up just going straight up onto the road to the moon, because they're doing that. Peanut butter cracker. Wait, peanut butter and earphones? Oh, you're in a bag. Wait, what? You're called a ear. That's crazy, huh? Yeah, peanut butter cracker and earphones, bro. What? Those are earphones? Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy. That does not look like earphones. Anyway, um, we have a magnifying glass that is not a character, but they appear from time to time. We also have the 1 billion ball, which is a character that has a lot of recurring. So, honestly, the fact that like in the top 5 most lines for this episode is the billion ball, because they've just said, "Hi, I am a billion ball," like so many times, is hilarious. Like, to be fair, I vibe with it. To be honest, you're not even a ball. You don't even qualify as a ball. You're like a 1 billion pill. To be honest, but okay. Then the Cup of Joe arrives here. They fail to grab the nuke from space because they weren't even close. And then the moon is gone because of course because it's gone. Yeah. Interesting thing. The sky is the various stars and things in the sky are different letters, which is interesting. I don't know if that has anything to do. I mean, presumably it's just a quick little background reference, because it's like, yo, it's a show about letters. Oh my God, there's letters in the sky, haha. Right? Because I mean, it wouldn't make sense that those are characters, because it's like we see A, and then in the sky background there's also an A, right? That doesn't mean that there's multiple A's necessarily. Right, it just means that it's a star shaped like an A, I guess. But yeah. Eventually, the peanut butter cracker ends up getting recovered. They're very much so obsessed with death, because you must have a character obsessed with death in an object show. It is a legal requirement. Otherwise, you don't get the bill. You actually have to go to big object show, the company, and be like, "Hello, would I like it?" And then one of the checks is like, "Do you have a character that wants to die?" Check. All right. But yeah, they're very obsessed with it. I don't know, like how they're so obsessed with it. It's like, bro, the recovery cube surely has been here for a while. No, have you never died before? Really? Then I guess they were being pretty peaceful, but like I'm pretty surprised. It's like you must have been around for ages. The recovery cube must have also been around for ages. So like, how have you never accidentally died? I mean, hey, especially considering how much this character wanted to die. Like, I'm surprised I never just did that. But okay. Um. Then we eventually end up having. Oh yeah, friend. So okay, friend. I think is a character, or like a who even. I think that's what they're called. They're like a kite, to be honest. But they're like a polygon. But everybody calls them friend because they're obsessed with having friends. That characters pretty interesting. They are, what's the way that the like I describe them? Okay, imagine animatic if it was a character. Imagine animatic if it was a character. That's pretty much the extent of it. Uh, the animatic as a contestant and without the powers. That's pretty much what they would be. If animatic was a contestant and didn't have the powers, then it would be friend, which I think is kind of fun to see as like a character. Um, I really wanna why. How does word salad speak, man? I, I I don't know. 'Cause the thing about word salad is like, oh, maybe what if you're speaking in anagrams? Like that's the type of thing where it's like, oh, what if bro is speaking in like anagrams and you're actually saying words and shit, you know? Like, those are the types of thing that I think about with word salad, and it's like, I mean, that would be cool. I don't think so, because I think we're just trying to say words that sound goofy. I mean, to go monkeyson. But in general, it'd be cool if word salad actually literally make like toss the salad of the word, so like the letters are all there, but it's like an anagram. But anyways, we are talking too much. Let's get to our big old host. A A is the host. So A, I'm gonna talk about A. A is a very very crudely drawn A, which is interesting. It's honestly, as far as object show hosts that are a symbol or letter, A is very much so probably one of the most different to the actual letters than I've seen. Right? Because like to turn four into a four, you have to twist it a little bit, but it's like it's in general normal. Like look at the amount of effort that the intro makes to switch A from the design to the A. We pretty much need an entire rework, right? Like, because it's so high up the freaking line that like A just looks complete, like such a different type of A, um, than any typography, right? Which is kind of interesting. But anyways, they arrive here to host an object show. They're pretty nice. They're like they're God, I don't know how to describe it. As usual, as soon as you get nice algebraian-esque host, the immediate idea is always, haha, what if it was X from BFB? Right, that's the obvious comparison that I feel like you would make. However, I don't know if it's exactly quantifies that. It's very like I don't. Oh God, how do you describe it? I do like that. Like A is like kind of the ABC song, and like that's kind of the thing. Is say, B is for bowl or whatever. C is for like that was part of the intro. But then we get to find out what A is for. That's kind of cool, right? A is like being sort of nursery rhyme as well, so kind of babyish character. That's kind of cool. However, anyways, they eventually join, and we end up having ourselves the prize, which is getting to know what A is for, and also Logan from Super Mario Logan, which is a person. I mean, presumably, I don't watch SML. I'm gonna be honest. I never did. I was big into plush videos, but SML was never part of my characteristics. But there's like funny meme, sure. And then we have our 32 contestants, which, yeah, I mean, what do I think of this cast? This cast is pretty interesting. But let's talk about it team from team, okay? Because A eventually asked everybody to make teams with about 15 minutes to make the teams. All right, so let's do that really quickly. Oh yeah, we have a random song. I don't why. Why did we do song? I don't know why we did song. It's like 30-second song. It's not a feature length song, but they were just like, yo, wouldn't it be funny if they sung at that moment? And it was pretty funny that they sung at that moment. So, yeah. Yeah, Nuki did not end up going onto the team, so they went to the other team. So the first team is titled Help Me, I'm choking, help me, I'm choking, get this thing off me, help, which is a great name. What does that acronym to? It acronyms to Okay, okay, yeah, it's not a great acronym. But we end up having. Okay, so this team is 1 billion ball. That guy that I don't remember the name of. The smoke detector, the balloon, the Tide Party. I'm really bad with names. You will know, you will notice this high level. Elderberry, treasure cube. No, treasure cube. I'm already mixing characters together. Yes, one character, treasure cube, treasure chest, and the recovery cube, as well as the fella that hangs out with the smoke detector. What are you? You're like a shrink, right? You're like a, what is it? Freaking sewing. Um, this team is okay. I mean, this team is a little bit interesting because it feels like it's the type of team that would be a little bit distracted by each other. You know, like there's a lot of kind of duos going on that kind of get distracted with each other. You know, like Top Party doesn't feel like there's actually going to help out too much the cause, right? Treasure chest a bit worried. It's more worried about like the recovery cube than anything, right? Kind of like how the string is more worried about the freaking beep boop, the smoke detector than anybody else, right? So I feel like this team could be a little bit distracted overall. Um, However, it does have minds. Like if they do actually have ideas, they can do pretty well. However, they have to not be distracted by each other, and I feel like this is the type of team that might get distracted from each other, especially with people like one billion ball, just kind of being in general a little bit annoying. Um, then we have ourselves team snapshot tweet snapshot message buzz. Okay, that is the team, which is a great. It's a great team. Hold on, who even is on this team? Wait, because there's 6 characters on this show, and Tangerine is gone. Wait, so who's missing? Oh, it's a Tangerine's friend, right? It's Brittle. Okay. This team has Tangerine in it. That's like the big X factor, Tangerine, because we don't really know what's up with Tangerine. Tangerine has is both ostracized by everybody, but at the same time they also do have possibly that power, you know, the dark arts and everything, right? And between everybody else, a lot of them seem to kind of be characters that don't care that much, right? Like Pillow probably doesn't care that much. Melanie is kind of just on their phone. The peanut butter cracker kind of doesn't care, right? So in general, there's not too much caring. So if Tangerine can kind of lock in and like, if the extent of their evil powers actually can help them out as a team, then it's going to be great. If not, it's going to be abysmal because of course the bad luck. Then we have the bowls with the B deleted, so it's the O's with the fellas of the many bowls, right? The fish bowl, the ramen bowl, the freaking shaper bowl, the dodecahedron, the mailbox, the mini USB, the cup of Joe, and Tide. No, not Tide Party, because Tide Party went back over. Okay. What do I think? What is this team? What is this team? I need to try to like break it down. This team, because this is one of the teams of all time. I mean, there's mines here. I feel like the dodecahedron was kind of smart. The mini USB was kind of smart. The Cup of Joe was kind of smart. No, I mean, the Cup of Joe literally invented a mind reading machine. I mean, its effectiveness was questionable, but like it did actually work to a certain extent, right? And then there's also, you know, a like that motherly figure character, right, who's gonna be a little bit smart as well. You know, I'm confident in this team. You're looking at it right now. I feel that this team has got some power on it. There's minds to this team, right? And we got a character like Fishbowl that's very athletic, you know, can reach into a lot of places, maybe climb themselves over to difficult locations, and we got a small character that can fit into gap. You know what? This team has got solid brains, you know? Okay, alright, I see you, Bulls. That team's gonna go. That team's great. Anyway, they end up having the Object Show Inspired team, which they end up taking Wuggalo's name, and then they switch out the W with a B, because the B from Bowls ended up flying over here, so it ends up as the Boogaloo team. So this is roundabouty, word salad, picture frame, I don't know what you're called, filler, fishy, the dog toy, the squeaky toy, and then meow, and then meow. This team is okay. I mean, we got to find out that Filler's pretty smart. Well, not Phil's really smart. Phil is just kind of got money, got stacks, got richness to it. But then, other than that, we do have a mixture of very distracted characters. I feel like this team's not that strong. This team's not that strong because Filler is okay, but no, this team's kind of Chaos Express though, right? Because like word salad isn't going to be able to communicate very well. The catch is going to kind of go along with the ride. The picture didn't really strike me as any type of leadership position character. The roundabout is kind of just one of those big clumsy characters, right? They're just like okay. The fishy gets distracted super easy. The squeaky gets distracted even easier, and Filler also gets distracted. You know, I think this team's gonna struggle. Looking at them, I mean, they're chaos merchants, so they probably are the type of team that gets a lot of screen time, but they would most likely struggle. Um, and yeah, those are the four teams. I forgot there's only four teams. Then we have our challenge. Anyways, have you noticed that I've talked for way too long? Do we gotta just skim the challenge? They're gonna just skim talk about the challenge. Okay, well, the challenge basically cross a river. I'll do this a little bit quickly because I've spent majority of the time just yapping about teams. So the challenge ends up being to. The challenge doesn't fucking matter. That's the problem. The challenge doesn't end up even mattering. Okay, so the challenge ends up being crossing the river because Logan is on the other side of the river. A couple of people invent some tactics, such as Filler going to their house that's at the top of a mountain. They end up spending half the time not knowing how to get there. Then what the hell does that team do? Okay, then the team with the billion ball ends up deciding to use the nose from Phil. Oh, Phil's what you call it. Okay, Phil's nose. They end up going all the way over, walking over, right, doing all that jazz. um, and then you get Phil over, which is nice. However, they forget to actually bring everyone across, so they're not safe immediately, which isn't that smart. Then, thankfully, Friend suggests 1, 2, 3, 4, which is correct somehow. They end up using jetpacks, which is very nice. However, they also end up dying because the jetpack didn't have that much fuel. They weren't great jetpacks. I guess that makes sense. I mean, when you put like you only had like one bottle, so if you put like 20%. You only feel like a 5% of each, so yeah, that makes sense. It wasn't exactly a great strategy. Tide Potty eventually ends up inventing the idea of literally yeeting the recovery cube over and 10 killing everyone. Which, you know what? That's a pretty good fucking idea. I must say, that was a pretty smart idea. I mean, of course, again, we don't know if the recovery cube was genuinely sensitive as a character. You know, like, because of course the treasure chest be like, oh no, it takes a lot of strain to recover people. Don't do that, right? But of course we don't know. She could just be talking crap, right? But if it does put strain, then yes, maybe it's bad, right? Because of course we're risking the life of the recovery cube. It's very important. However, if she is just chatting shit, then it is a way better idea to just to do that. That strategy is a very good idea. But yeah, I mean, A is oh god, A is kind of animatic core, you know, in the way that we're like shaping into what we want. It's like nice animatic. It's like if okay, I'm gonna just mix my two analogies. If animatic had an X, it would be A. Okay, does that make sense? Let's say that. I had an X style sidekick, it'd be A. Does that? Let's go with that. Okay. Um, then eventually we yet again take the strat of just dying to get over. So then the Bugalows are safe, and then the last team end up getting okay. So they decide to go with a sufficient range from Nuki, and then Nuki explodes. So then they all fly over. Yep. That's a strategy that you can do. It's not great because like of course Nuki gets recovered on the island. However, they don't know that. Right? Like they did not factor that into their strategy, so it's actually a pretty abysmal strategy if you consider that. Also, it wouldn't work majority of the time, right? You can't like how do they know how far to go? They wouldn't, right? Like it's a very dumb idea. It's very 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 dumb idea. Like it is hilariously stupid. Um, then eventually the jetpack team ends up bringing everybody on their back to try freaking, I guess, going over there with a pogo stick, which is an interesting tactic. However, eventually the other team crashes, and then the Tangerine team end up not being, yeah, and then the team with the roundabout, the team on the pogo stick end up flying over, so they end up going, and then everybody's safe. Then it's over, but however, the recovery cube dies because A steps on it. A steps on the recovery cube is dead, and you can't recover the recovery cube with the recovery cube because the recovery cube is dead. We try to fix up the recovery cube, but it doesn't work, which means the recovery cube is theoretically eliminated, and now death is imminent, which means Peanut Butter Cracker is not making it to the next episode. We are jumping into the water. There's not that character with how much they're thinking about death. Nah. It's over. It's over, Jack Gag. It's an immediate one. But yeah. I mean, that's interesting. There's no way they don't get recovered. Because, like, I'm sorry, this is an animatic style show without deaths in it. That's like half of the gags. we gotta get a recovery center, bro. There's no way. I don't trust this character to just be eliminated. No, they're coming back. But, eventually, we end up having that the entire challenge doesn't fucking matter because Tangerine just evils Logan into the other side. So that means that they are safe, and then they bring the two other teams. So the Buggalos, which is the team with the squeaky toy, right? Tangerine specifically makes sure that they are for elimination. So you see, these are the evil powers that we're on about, right? Because it's like, wait, you could do that? Because if you can actually do that, like if you generally do have cursed powers that you've gained, then that makes you, very strong. So that is interesting. It does make the entire challenge irrelevant, which I don't enjoy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a big fan of writing an entire challenge to be like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if the everything that we just didn't matter, and just the one team was like, oh, let me do this thing, and now you're all not safe. And it's like, I mean, is it? I feel like, I don't know. I don't really, those types of gags I don't really get, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. A lot of people find it funny. I personally don't really find it that funny because, like, I kind of just wasted 10 minutes then if the challenge was going to be decided in 5 seconds. It's kind of like, it's a guy that original BFDI does quite a bit. Where they do it, oh, so wow, what a voice crack! Where they do an entire challenge, it ends up as a tie, and then the tiebreaker ends up being the freaking pull the string challenge, and it doesn't matter. Like, it's just kind of, bro. But anyways, vote to eliminate between the Buggalos. Who ends up getting out? I mean, I'd predict the squeaky toy, because. Well, first is the vote to eliminate, and I predict the squeaky toy because, of course, they were mean to the Tangerine, and that has been a heavy point, right? So maybe I'd predict them. I love the voting screens for everybody. They're great. I like how the word salad has, a bunch of like gibberish in the background and everything. But yeah, that is all. We also, oh no, actually we have W in the post credits. What W? What is W doing here? Nah, bro. We can't be having evil side letters already, okay? You gotta leave those to, like, Teapot 16s. That's when one comes in, okay? I can't have a W in episode 2. But okay, I have talked about this episode for way longer than I'd expect to. Because, usually I try to talk for the length of the episode. This has gone significantly over, which, good omen for the series, though. That means there's a lot to talk about. And I didn't even do a character by character analysis, which I usually do. Let's go to episode 2 of AS4, which is titled Brittle Blockbusters. Let's go. Okay, so I have just watched the episode 2 of AS4, which is titled Brittle Blockbusters. Now, before I even talk about, okay, let's talk about some general stuff, right, to start off here, okay? Because there is a lot of general stuff that I think that we can reasonably discuss, all right? So, first of all, the titles are following a letter by letter constant, which I've just noticed while I was watching the episode. Is episode A is titled Astronomical Ambush. Episode 2 is called Brittle Blockbusters. Episode 3, which we haven't gone into, has with like C. It's like called CRUDDIEST, whatever. And episode 4, which is the later, is called DILL, which means that we are following a letter by letter constant, which does imply that theoretically, of course, if you want to go through the alphabet, we would have at least a maximum of 26 episodes, which is interesting, to be honest. I mean, it could have 27 if you want to include ampersand, but like 26 episodes, which of course is not enough for the cast. If you were to do elimination by elimination, because there are 32 characters in the show. All right, so that's interesting. However, at the same time, currently in this show, we are utilizing death as a concept of elimination, right? So far, you are eliminated if you're dead, which so far 3 characters have been eliminated due to death. Recovery Cube, right here at the beginning of the episode, we get to see Elderberry died somehow. We don't really get to know what happened. We just know that they died and they held the memorial for Elderberry, which is okay. I mean, interesting enough. So they died, and then there's also eventually Poppy with the pop fella, the balloon, which ended up getting eliminated last episode, right at the post credit scene, thanks to Tide Pod, right? So those are the 3 deaths, which alongside the elimination here means we currently have 4 characters eliminated. However, we are doing a very sneaky thing that so far, the teams that have been up for Elam have never been a team that has had an elimination by death, as far as I'm aware. Because we've always had 8 people up for Elam, which means that the teams are full in both cases. So both last time and this time, we have had the team that is up for Elam be a team that is fully alive, right? Which means that this show is currently not putting its eggs in one basket. It is not decisively doing that. Because I think as soon as you put a team up for elimination that had a character that should have been up for Elam as part of the team, and then they're not up for Elam because they're eliminated, I think immediately at that moment you lock into the idea. Right? You lock into the idea, okay, the eliminated contestants are eliminated. Right? For sure. And they're not coming back because they're there. Right? Like, that is for certain when you do that. So this show is not yet, as of episode 2, putting its eggs in that basket. It is not yet going, this is decisively. It is giving itself the room to change its mind later. It is giving it the room to have recovery be an option, right? Instead of eliminated characters thanks to deaths, which I think is it's a pretty interesting deal. What would I want them to do? I would want them to have a recovery center. I mean, yeah, it's a better idea than them not having like you have a more regular style show if you do that, and instead like you're gonna just have the random fan favorite die, and it's gonna be like, what? Oh, okay, I guess you're gone, right? Because I mean, with the degree of dumb idea that we're doing, all it takes is Nuki to explode on accident, and then boom, their entire team is eliminated in one episode. Like it just is. It just allows you to do more fun writing style. And I mean, we're doing a freaking animatic battle style show. Come on, that's kind of part of it's par for the course. So that is interesting. However, look, I have no idea how we're doing that. A doesn't seem to really know or care or give a shit. So that's kind of a thing. But let's actually chat about our episode here for a little bit. We have some characters. Filler was randomly worried, and then A ends up hosting the elimination. Okay, the elimination. So the elimination ends up having 2,592 votes, which the reward goes to Friend for being a friend. By the way, these votes were not even close. There was a standout in both categories. But yeah, I mean, Friend is immediately iconic. You can just kind of tell. Like the characters, it was immediately interesting, was immediately fun, immediately gave off the vibes. Everybody loves animatic, and this is animatic if it was a contestant. So Friend wins with 965. There's also probably a Deltron joke in there somewhere. Word Salad ended up getting second. Phil ended up getting 30. A lot of those characters that were just kind of relevant in the episode that were kind of interesting. I'm glad that people like Word Salad though, because Word Salad is quite cool as well. Then we end up having a couple of other characters. The pizza ends up going within the ball, which is fun yet again. I wonder if they can say pizza now. I really wish that was how word salad worked. It's not, but it'd be so cool if what was in the word salad they can say. Imagine how fire that would be. Imagine the fire emojiness. But anyway, I need to start all about it. But it was like by a freaking 1,000,000 to 1 range. Squeaky Toys eliminated with 1,000 more votes than second place. 1K more when there's a total of 2,500 votes is hilarious. No, yeah, I mean, you get eliminated. by a country mile, and it makes 100% sense. To be honest, this, as far as elimination votes go, this is by a mile my probably the most I've agreed with viewers. Viewers for this show have done votes that make perfect amounts of sense. You eliminate Squeaky Toy because you're racist, you're bad, and you're just you make your team lose. You're annoying, you're mean. You're racist and all that jazz. Okay, sure, that makes perfect sense. But then even second and third make a lot of sense. You eliminate Meow because at the end of the day, Meow is not a good character. At the end of the day, it's one of those kind of one. It's a very one-tone character by just the way that it is. So it's a cat that can say meow, and the joke is that they say meow, right? Like they don't. There's not that much. And then there's Pig Pig, which we know the name. I call them like Picture Frame every time for the Landscape. I think it's because no, it's because in animatic there's a character called Landscape, right? but But then, like, Pick was by far the least utilized character, so they ended up in third place. It's like, oh, you weren't really relevant, I'll vote for you. So you know what? The viewers actually were goated in this elimination. I think they made perfect sense in this elimination ranking, to be honest. But yeah, eventually we end up getting eliminated. Filler has a kid now, and then there's B. B ends up coming in to host their show. However, A's like, yo, I'm not doing that. A is, not authoritative enough to kick them out, so they're just kind of there, kind of half hosting, but they try to have a co-host. B thinks that they are the co-host, so yeah, eventually Squeaky Toy ends up going into the A-hole, which is like, of course, the gag, where like it's just a hole with a coloring on it. It's a pretty nice elimination area, to be fair, and you don't have to be in there necessarily, just kind of where you go to. Then we have ourselves a challenge. Oh yeah, I like the gag of Nuki playing Uno. That was cute. I like it. By the way, I love it when, like, fun fact, they have to call the bootleg of Uno Tres because they can't kind of call it DOS because DOS is just an actual card game that Uno made. They actually made DOS, so you have to call it Tres about to make a bootleg Uno, or it doesn't work, which I think is great. But yeah, eventually the peanut butter cracker ends up being apparently pretty good at Uno. So then we have ourselves the main plot line of the episode, I guess, is that the Cup of Joe ends up having. Look, as far as names go, I've actually remembered that one really well. Ends up creating a growth ray as an invention because they want to bring mini USB to, I don't know, regular USB size. However, it just so happens that the shrink ray is too strong. It's too powerful, so when aiming it, they miss, and instead it goes to Tangerine, which evil powers it into everybody else, and it somehow zaps them all at the same time. I mean, I guess if the growth rate is just extremely strong, then I mean, I guess that would happen. Okay, sure, but yeah, I mean, it is powerful. And then they end up, I guess, just kind of being in the grass all the time. Half of the jokes are just, yo, you see this regular item, the regular thing? Yo, it's like a big problem to the minis. From time to time, we end up doing mini things, like mini in shows. And, it's a fun concept. It's always fun to see what it's like to be really small, Like, there's a reason why being an ant is it's an interesting concept. And, yeah, it is indeed interesting. Then we have ourselves the challenge, which A ends up deciding, which is chisel stones. Eventually, you will you get one pillar of stone, chisel your stone, and we'll rate your creations in an hour. So this is definitely one of the challenges of all time that you can do in an object show. I actually, fun fact, complained about this exact challenge yesterday in episode 50 as Object Overload original did a stone chiseling challenge. I was like, I dislike stone chiseling challenges. Because sculpting is not a thing that you would just know. Right? Especially these objects that are kind of dumb, kind of stupid, kind of 12-year-olds, right? They're like, they spend their time sitting in the grass and playing Monopoly, right? Like, these are not the objects that are going to be knowing how to chisel, right? And therefore, it's like, I think sculpting is that type of challenge where it's like, it's impossible for anybody that doesn't know. but for some reason, certain characters know and certain characters don't know, and it's just completely subjective. So it's either everybody knows, which is completely unrealistic, and it's just like, okay, we're writing that everybody knows for sake of conveniency, or we're not doing that for the specific purpose that or we're just being selective, and in which case it doesn't make any sense why somebody would know and somebody wouldn't, right? Because at the end of the day, they're not that different. So that's why I dislike a challenge like this, like sculpting or building a house, right? Because it's like that. I've said this a couple of times, but I'll say it again here because it is the point of the challenge. At the end of the day, nobody does an incredible job chiseling, to be honest. However, it's still a general statement that I think we gotta chat about. Tide Party, I'm not exactly sure what Tide Party is doing. So, like, Tide Party is. I thought the idea with Tide Party was that they were trying to, like, they're the murdery character, right? Because just kind of like with Pillow in a BFD or whatever, they're kind of the murdery character. The character that wants to do murder, but for some reason they also don't. They're like very random. Like, why would you? Like, they took the knife, started, freaking bashed at it on the stone for a little bit, and then threw the knife away. What? What was the goal? What was the achievement? What were we trying to achieve here? I need I need a pep talk, okay? Look, if you want to murder people, that's cool, but you don't throw the knife away then. I don't know. Then you're not trying to do that. Then you're just weird. But okay. Eventually Mini USB ends up starting to chisel because they're the only one who can even try to do it. And I mean, they certainly try, you know? It ends up being a little bit complicated. Then the knife from the fella ends up landing a friend. Everybody latches onto friend as friend eventually runs over. Friend is so animatic, core. I'm so sorry. I'm just telling you. It is okay. It just is. You know, like and roundabout he gets dropped off in the middle of the river, which for being the whole river of doom. Right, that nobody could pass the last time. It was impossible. It's really not that doom. Not gonna lie. But eventually a friend complains, and the Mini USB complains to Tide Party, and then eventually Mini USB finds them and just drops them off on their head and goes like, "Yo, I mean, like, I'm gonna chisel because there's what else am I? I'm the only one here who can do the challenge." So yeah, then we have ourselves the team with a friend in it, which ends up being this team. I'm telling you, this team is really good. Like, as far as just like the speaking of the skills of this team is solid. All right, and they end up having a pretty good performance. Wait a minute, no. Wait, I didn't call this team good. Wait, what team did I call good? No, I mean this team is pretty solid. Like they're easily the strat. Yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, I got confused with the team because Word Salad and the other fellow are just so similar. This team is good but distracted. That's what I thought of this team, right? Because they are kind of distracted. I mean, you can see how they're the last one to start, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I mean, they are distracted. Word Salad doesn't make much sense. Meow's kind of weird. Friend is good, but of course, again, easily distracted. And then Fishy's also just like that. So yeah, as a team, it is an easily distracted team. However, yeah, if they do it, they do it. And in this case, they have somebody like Friend, who, for some, as you can tell, you see, Friend can just sculpt because you can. No, but you end up doing pretty well with the Bugalows. Then we have the Tangerine team, and you see, as I said, yeah, that team's skills and abilities pretty much entirely comes down to will a Tangerine do a good thing or not, because that team, like, it's a bunch of average people who however want Tangerine to just do everything for them, and you see they try, it ends up being a massive disaster because the energy of the curse is too strong, right, to do a thing. Right? I'm glad that it wasn't just. To be fair, I'm glad that it failed. I'm glad that it wasn't just. Oh, yes, this curse can do everything pretty strong. Like, I like how the fact that the curse power is very strong, and it can do a delicate work like this. Okay, that's cool. It also ends up destroying Friend's work over on the other side because of how much they were mad. And eventually they end up making a new version, which they decide to have a friend spell cast on Fishy to turn them into stone, which is, I mean, okay, that's interesting. Then we end up having okay, what is freaking smoke detector on about? Dot hyphen. Okay, I don't know how to calculate Morse code, but box broken, make present, you happy. Why do you tell that to 1 billion ball? You're telling that to the most useless person in the room. Ain't no way. Yeah, 1 billion ball is tries to cheer him up in the worst way possible. Roundabout, he ends up doing that. Ends up, just kind of hanging around. We get to see the Amelie to Roundabout. I like floating here about. We have some cool characters available here on the recommended scene. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I really did enjoy the gag last time of having the recommended character thing show up, but there's only one of them. That was really funny. But now that we actually have recommended characters, okay. Hey, by the way, I see some people that I recognize now. Plus Creative Access Denied. I see Pixel Pause, which worked on a show, which is pretty cool. But wait, Pixel Pause worked on Dibs, 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 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I recognize some people. But eventually, we end up having some turning people into stone. There are word salads saying Schlorgo Dink Frill the Lorgo Doppelskop. Brute, I really want to know if this means something. There's some I am a very interested in word salad. You can do like the thing about word salad is I really want to know if this fella is just speaks in gibberish because that's what they are. Because there's a lot, like you can add a lot of complexity to this character, and I really want to know if they're adding it, if they're not adding it. But I don't think they are. But it'd be cool if they did. But anyways, yeah, they turn Fishy into stone. Then we end up having Chesty. Okay, so all right. Let's talk about this team for a moment. So this team decides that they're going to sculpt a friggin' recovery cube because Chesty's really sad about it. Really sad about it. And by the way, it's just a very cute design detail that the Chesty can like close to like hide away from the world and just kind of be with their own thoughts and shit. Which I think it's I think it's cool. As a design, not cool that like she's crying, but like it's cool as a character design perspective, right? That you can do that, right? That like the face is within you, so that means that you can like close it. Um, and they even have the pieces of the recovery cube in them as well, so you can just look at them when they need. But yeah, I gotta say, I don't think 1 billion cube is doing a great job. 1 billion cube, 1 billion ball, 1 billion pill, 1 billion dodecahedron. They got to do that joke at some point. Come on, like, it's a moment. So what are we doing? Oh yeah, the other team. No, not the other team. The first team that had the rocks destroyed by Tangerine ends up just trying to stack their freaking rocks together to make something work. And you know what? I love this montage. This was a very creative failing montage. That was I love it. I love the picture. I love A and B being all mini. I love exploding the ball and running away from the ball. Again, bringing the actual back, like grabbing the freaking. Oh, I love that. Freaking grabbing the aspect ratio and banging it onto the thing. That's hilarious. But yeah, eventually they just order a new a new stone wall online because that's yeah that you can do that. You got a phone. Eventually, the mini USB decides to chisel something. For some reason, they decide to chisel like the smallest possible thing, which ends up being I mean, they didn't use the. Okay, I'm a little bit confused because they didn't use the thing. Like they didn't use the shrink growth rate the thing, right? Which implies that it's like, wait, I mean, what? I thought you were doing that, but no. So like, you just organically made like the smallest statue of all time. Which I mean, okay, I guess fair enough. A is so pissed at B, but A is too nice to actually do anything. I'm curious if I wonder if okay, I think the gag of having the characters like go from a for like having a co-host every episode is wouldn't be it would be too weird, right? I don't think that we're gonna have a different co-host every episode. No way. You know, even though B appears in episode B, I don't think C is going to appear in episode C or whatever. Like, I don't think we're doing that. By the way, also, I just remembered, if I'm not mistaken, W did show up in this episode as part of like a book. I swear, like near the beginning, there was a very tiny W appearance that I didn't notice. That was interesting. They're really doing the one from Teapot thing. Where like, oh, you see, I was in the background all along. Like, okay, cool villain, bro. But yeah, A rates the performances. B ends up giving everything a 0 out of B, which to be fair, they were not great. I think that like, I mean, of course, you didn't chisel the one where we turned into stone, of course, and the fact that it moves also implies that something's going on. So I wouldn't exactly give it a good performance either, to be honest. But yeah, then we end up having the one of A, which, I mean, it doesn't really look like A, but to be fair, what does? Not even the letter A looks like A. So, I mean, I'd give it a decent rating. I think it was you know. And then eventually there's the team that's choking because they gave the cube, which they get a good rating. And I mean, I do have to agree, it is just a square. It's a very faithful square though. It's very faithful. I give it a good rating. I think that team wins pretty deservedly. And then the last team ends up just having. Oh yeah, eventually gets crushed. Yeah, no, it's over. Chesty is not coming back. We are remaining locked. And eventually the owls end up having the ultra small, like super small building. I don't know why. Why is it so small? What was the idea? Hold on. Okay, what was the idea? So the idea was that like you heard the mini blabbering, and you were like, oh, the mini's blabbering. I should make it mini because that's what they're saying. Because I'm hearing squeaks, so I should make it a squeak. Is that is that the logic that we're applying here? What is mini USB doing? What I don't know, but okay. Um, then eventually everybody ends up being like, "Yo, a cup of Joe, you can get it back to normal, right? Right?" And I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm sure you could build something, but like you can't because you're super small. So, yeah. And then this team is up for elimination. Interesting elimination, by the way, because this is the one team that didn't really get to do much. Like if you think about it, I mean, this team is the one that was the most impacted by this episode. However, it's also the team that had the least to do in the challenge, because at the end of the day, 7 out of 8 contestants really couldn't do anything, in the challenge. Like, they just physically couldn't because they were all shrunken down, and majority of them is not their fault, right? So it ends up being a little bit complicated. So it's interesting. Who could we eliminate? Okay, so let's imagine here. So contenders for elimination. Cup of Joe, absolutely. Cup of Joe did the mistake of shooting the shrink ray wrong. However, to be fair, that is technically not their fault. They shot them away. Okay, it's their fault for not, of course, aiming it at. For me, okay. Hold on. Let me restart. It's Cup of Joe's fault that they made an incorrect weapon, of course, because if it's a growth ray, it should grow, not shrink. Right? They made a shrink ray on accident. And it is also their fault for not aiming it correctly at tiny USB anyways, right? However, it is not their fault that it lands on them, because that's Tangerine's effort. Like, when Cup of Joe missed, they still aimed it away from anybody that they saw, because Tangerine was hidden, right? And then Tangerine eventually strikes it back, which is not their fault, okay? Second person that could get eliminated, Todd Potty. Todd Potty for sure, because they're just mean. They're just evil, right? They're just murdering. The reason why the balloon is dead and eliminated is because of them. The reason why the knife gets thrown away from the mailbox is because of them. They made Friend angry, which is one of the fan favorites, so that's also their fault. And in general, it is a bit of a complication. So they could get eliminated as like rude character pick. And then also I could see Tiny USB being an option as well, because even though they were the one doing the challenge, at the end of the day, the reason why the growth rate has to be made in general is because of them being tiny, and then also the reason why they lose the challenge is their fault. They were the only one who could realistically chisel, and they failed to chisel something that you could even see. Right, so at the end of the day, it is them being up for elimination is mainly a fault of tiny USB. All right, because you could debate that everybody else was not something that you could exactly contest, but in this case, you know, like it was all down to tiny USB, and tiny USB let them down. All right. The rest of them should be relatively safe. I don't see why they would get the most votes. My prediction is that Tide Pod is going to get eliminated, considering just how many additional votes, like 1,000 more, we got on the person who got eliminated this episode, Squeaky Toy. I'm still predicting that we're going Mean gets out, so I'm going to predict that Tide Pod gets out. Our post-credit scene is word salad violently shaking for some reason. Although we have, of course, seen that that's not necessarily something that matters. Because, I mean, we saw Filler do it, and it didn't really seem to be anything important. Or at least not something important that they immediately know. Like, it's not something that, it's an immediate call to action, right? Because Filler snapped out of it. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but I don't know, maybe. Maybe it's W. Fucking W. And then Roundabout he ends up in a very good looking jungle. That the freaking the assets for these fucking jungle trees are those are they are solid. They are good. They're very nice. um and yeah, all right. That is the second episode of AS4 Brittle Blockbusters. It is time to head into episode 3, which is also the longest one. It is titled Cruddiest Cartoon Created, 3157. Let's watch it. Let's talk about it. And yeah, let's go. Alright, I have just watched episode 3 of AS4. So, let's talk about this, because this episode is a doozy, alright? So, there is a absolutely astronomical writing style change. All right, just the way that this episode goes about its business is 100 times different than anything else. All right, because like basically this show decided to take itself goofy, just super goofy, right? Like how do I say this? So within a show, within a comedic basis show, all right, where we have a show with comedy in it, like kind of like in the cinematic style, where a lot of it is based on comedy, right? There are various ways that you can approach how to do jokes. Okay, one of the main ways that you can do jokes is you can do jokes in universe, or you can make an out of universe jokes, right? You can write your own joke as something that happens unique to itself, right? And it's funny because you're watching it and you're like, this is a unique joke, right? Or the joke can directly be related to an outside thing. For example, when you see a Roblox ragdoll or a Roblox thing, you'll be like, haha, it's the thing from Roblox, right? And that is comedy, comedy by referencing, right? Because you can do comedy by referencing, or you can create the comedy yourself to then reference yourself, right? This is what comedy, creating reference for comedy, is what a show like BFDI does, right? BFDI is funny because it calls itself back to itself a lot of the time, right? It, of course, it does tons of jokes from time to time based on outside media. However, it does a lot of jokes for itself. For example, in BFDIA how they have that one maze, right, that everybody keeps adventuring, goes whoa whoa, right, and they call back to that, or like the highway, right, they call back to it. They create a reference and then they build off the jokes from there, right? So that way it's a show that's like, it constructs its own jokes. In the meanwhile, this takes itself 100% in the opposite direction, going nearly entirely in jokes based on outside media in this episode, like for just near certainty, taking jokes of animation, having a stop with with like a weird reviewer being like, oh my god, this is pre-split writing or whatever, right? And then having like that 3D car racing, whatever, right? Then there's a Roblox. Then there's the freaking I don't even remember, but there's something else. Even something like the presidential joke is probably written. Hold on, when was this episode released? Give me a moment. 8 months ago, April 2025. Okay, probably just took a while, but it probably was written at election time. Like this is like that type of thing where like it's how it goes. um oh, and then like the real life apple getting cut, like kind of like annoying orange style, right? And the something else that I don't quite remember. Yeah, the hole in one guy near the end. Like there's so much of that in this episode, right? Where like the joke is referencing something else, whether it's Roblox, whether it's Wii Sports, whether it's Minecraft, right? Like there's just it does that to a degree. And in the other episodes, 1 and 2, it relatively keeps itself on the low key. It honestly was pretty much so on the other side of the spectrum. It was creating jokes based on itself, and it was doing pretty good at it. However, here we have just gone fuck it. Let's go reference material. And then there's the big question: is this okay? Is this good? Is this is this fun? Is it good? Do we like it? What do we think of it, right? Now, it is a little bit funny to criticize it in a way, because at the end of the day, you know how there is the freaking comedy reviewer in this video going, "Oh my god, writing is so bad." If you think about it, if I were to criticize it, then I am the joke, right? At the end of the day, I am reviewer, technically reviewing right now, right? Um, Even though I don't like say reviewing, I like say discussion, because I feel like even though I am kind of reviewing it, and I'm not reviewing it because I'm not giving it like a score, it's just a discussion, but eventually this is the situation. What do I think? This is it's a tough one, because this episode goes insane. It exaggerates, I think, a little bit, to be honest, right? Because like there's a certain point where you want to, like, you can have your joke have references, right? But there's a certain point when making just constant references to outside media that you end up sort of losing the seriousness of yourself. You end up losing seriousness of yourself, and you end up becoming a joke show on accident. All right, this is the thing that happened. Does this episode do that? I think just about sways into the territory where it's like this episode is a joke. At the like it kind of gives off that vibe, because it's not because any individual element is fine, but when you write 20 of them into the same script, it just keeps hitting you. It just keeps going punch, pull, 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 reference, Roblox, freaking Roblox, Wii Sports, the freaking other thing, right? And it's like it does that quite a bit. Adobe Anime, pa pa pa. With annoying or like it just keeps doing that, and it ends up being a little bit. Oh yeah, BFDI, because freaking announcer speaker box appeared, and it's like at a certain point it exaggerates itself. Okay, because it's a fine, but like I don't think you want to be perceived a show like this as a joke show, because at the end of the day, it's not a joke show. It's a show with jokes, but it's not a joke show by itself, right? But there's a certain point where if you if you exaggerate it, it becomes a joke show, right? A show that is a joke itself. Um, so yeah, I think it exaggerates, but it survives. If episode 4 were to crank up on this even more, then I start being like, okay, stop. then I start calling for stop. The episode's fine as a one-up, but like I think if we keep this level of exaggeration, we end up going a little bit insane. Like it ends up going like, okay, what is happening, right? Um, so yeah, that's like the big debate about this episode for sure, because it's very bold. For example, what would I say? Like, imagine Oido. Okay, Oido, the other show that I watch, out in the open. That show has a very very similar gags to this in this latest episode, Oido 2, right? In the way that it functions, like the screen getting stopped by someone being like, "Oh my god, guys, look at this show," or whatever, right? I like the gag, and he literally has a character called OSC fan, as one of them, right? However, at the end of the day, you see, it's like, again, those jokes are fine in moderation, and I don't mind out in the open for doing them because they're funny as a one-off. It's just when the show is so just when an episode is so jam-packed with them, a one-off stops being a one-off and just starts becoming the identity of the show. All right, we've talked about that. Anyways, let's start off here. Actually, talk about the episode itself. First of all, I find the flashing lights warnings in object shows a little funny. Okay, I'm sorry for saying this. However, it always feels nobody takes this shit into account until their show gets popular. I'm just telling you, nobody puts in a flashing light warning until their show's popular, and it's like, oh shit, our show got too many views. We actually have to fucking not get sued. So fine, put warning. Like that's fun. That was fun. Like kind of funny. Like, cause like episode 2 had flashing lights, but we didn't put that. We didn't think of the photosensitive people then. No, we were only thinking because we got popular. But hey, I mean, it's always a good warning to have. But anyways, let's actually talk about our lore here for a little bit. We have ourselves some fellas. So, a concertina, which is the name of the character, which I couldn't figure out what you were. I thought you were like those strings for sewing, but you're not. You're like a you're like a guitar amp, whatever. But you end up doing that. You end up going over to a random house in the log house, which ends up having a council, which apparently has a meeting because they weren't doing too great because Concertina has let 2 members of their team die. Technically, because I mean, it's not, again, it really isn't their fault. I'm not gonna lie, it's not their fault. The animation quality on this episode does feel mildly increased. I mean, especially in scenes like this, they're solid as far as animation quality goes. It's pretty high. But yeah, who is there? There is Concertina, the apple. There is Squeaky Toy, despite being eliminated, and then there's also Cup of Joe, right? As the super small. A crashes in because they do that, and then eventually we end up doing ourselves the elimination. A decides to shrink them all down to plank length, the literal smallest they could possibly go, and then they host the elimination. Actually, they don't host the elimination. They made dodecahedron host the elimination. You see, A's nice. A lets them do it. You know, A's like, okay, fine, dodecahedron, go do your friggin' thing or whatever. You know, like A's kind of nice. I like A. I like A. I think that like having a nice host is underrated. Okay, because I know that we got 4 and anime. Like the big object shows all have mean ass hosts. Right, like there's not a single nice one in the most popular. Like pretty much there just isn't. Right, but like we can do nice hosts. Nice hosts are cool. You know, I like A. A is good guy. You know, it's fun to watch somebody be a bit awkward when hosting. You know, like I don't. It's good. I think the episodes where X hosts is low key better. Low key better, but yeah, we end up having the dodecahedron read out the votes. 5017, mini, freaking tiny USB ends up getting the most by 300 over Cup of Joe, to win the prize. Does that make sense? I mean, they did do something, which the others didn't. Like they gave it an attempt. So you know, yeah, you're cool. Then eventually everybody else is safe, and then we have the bottom 2, which is dodecahedron alongside Tide Party. However, Tide Party ends up getting out with 14,000. Whoa, we not there yet. At 1,435 compared to dodecahedron's 1,000. I don't know why dodecahedron got 1,000. I guess the design is just not that interesting, but yeah, Tide Party gets out with 1,435. Yeah, no, that makes 100% sense. So far, the eliminations have not really been that difficult to predict. There's just been a mean character in both of them. So, yeah, we have to do that. We end up seeing the friggin' soup letter bowl. Wait, what? Letter soup. Yeah. Ended up being happy about this. You see, even that's a BFDI gag. Bro, I don't. Okay, this show needs to stop. Anyways, we end up having our intro. A is for Then yeah, we have the gag with Adobe Animate. We bring it over. Then we have they're under arrest, and then we're doing community service. Okay, so the challenge ends up being help out B do his community service. There's four. Everybody's got to go to one place and do the community service for B. This is always that type of challenge that is funny because technically B needs all of it done, but only 3 teams are going to be done by the time that you did it. So technically B is not going to be done with his community service by then. But okay. What do I think? By the way, we still have the subtitles. I'm curious if AS44 will have these subtitles because they have truly been enhancing experience. So yeah, each team gets sent to a different place. They have 3 hours exactly to do it. We end up having, oh yeah, dude, this visual novel. You see what I mean? Okay, whatever. Anyway, I mean, it's great art. It's just like, again, as a joke, it's fine. It's just when it's blended in with so many other jokes of a similar style, it starts draining. It starts becoming the identity. Whatever. Anyways, so they go to the city, which is a place that exists. Apparently, I don't know when this place showed up. We never saw the city before. I mean, we did, I guess, see the city in the sense that like we knew that there was civilization. You know, like civilization was around. We could order stuff online, and delivery vans and stuff came out. But I don't. Yeah. They end up going to the soup kitchen, Melanie's team. So then they're going to the soup kitchen thanks to a bee costume that just so happens to exist. Then the team with a filler in it ends up going to the friend team, and they're going to the meat factory, the Roblox meat factory. Hot dogs, hot cats. Hot cats is a fucking Roblox cat. Please. Please. All right. Then they end up processing 1,000 pieces of meat. By the way, the pick has changed. Like the actual picture of the pick within the pick I think has changed, which is interesting because yeah, it was like a landscape, right? It was like because that's why I called it a landscape. It was like a mountain. Now it's changed. Now it's like a guy in a campfire. Okay, you can do that. That's like interesting character detail though. Ain't older, older. That's cool. We could do stuff. We could work with that. I'm trying to imagine the ways to get character complexities here because, as I like to say, these first batch of episodes always got to be introducing every character, and now and afterwards we got to start inventing abilities and interactions and stuff, heading into the middle game. But yeah, oh yeah, this tennis gag, like even this, whatever. Um, then we end up having the mini team. I'm just gonna call them the mini team. They're fucking all shrunken down. They end up doing the challenge of freaking cleaning up the trash. However, the only trash that there is one gigantic can. That's the only trash on the beach. Really? That is one clean beach. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be for real out here. Have you gone to a beach? That's a clean beach. The only thing they had to get rid of this is one cat. I mean, it's pretty difficult because the cat is fucking ginormous. But yeah, they end up doing that. Until eventually we end up having a gigantic crab. We end up having a regular-sized crab to pose up as a major threat to the boys because we ain't doing too well. So then they start running away because it's the thing. You see, oh my god, I forgot the gag where dodecahedron pauses the laugh track to complain about it. You see what I mean? There's so many that I forgot half of them. But anyways, then we end up having the freaking the chess team. The team that has been, of course, struggling, the team with the billion ball. Okay, so billion ball got confiscated to be the president. I think what is going on there is that million ball is the president. Okay. And then billion ball got mistaken for the president million ball. And then they just went to do their speech, and since billion kind of sound like a million, everybody was just like, "Oh, I mean, sure," you know. They end up doing that, so we end up having the billions of vaccines, da 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 da. And then we end up having ourselves the animal shelter. It's nice to see Chesty not having an absolutely miserable day all of the time. That's like cute, seeing them actually be joyous for a little bit, and the cats are all drawn with a nice art style. And like, what is what is the host? No, the freaking owner of this cat. Are you a cat toy? Isn't this one of those like super fluffy like toys that like the like stress toys for like cats and shit? 'Cause that's like the perfect object for to be the owner of an animal shelter. That's like crazy. But yeah, then we have Stinky, which ends up running away immediately, and everybody decides to go run after them. I don't think we need everybody to go running after them. What about the other cats? Come on, Bo. What are we doing? But okay, I guess the other cats are well behaved enough. Then eventually, okay, they start processing the meat. Okay, we end up having a Roblox achievement. They have a restricted area. Then we end up making, oh yeah, the soup team, the soup kitchen. We never get to see Melanie wear a bee costume, which I think is a missed opportunity. That feels like a free gag. That feels like that's a gag of itself. But oh well, oh well. Then we end up having some fellas cooking at different intervals of capability. I don't Apple, yes, he's chopping and things like. Oh yeah, I got chopped before. I don't like. How does these are the types of characters I always find it interesting, because it's like, for example, right, if we want to overanalyze it, that apple that you saw there in the IRL video, that's a complete apple. That's a complete apple. Two eyes, two eyes, two eye. Okay, which means that, like, how did you end up as an apple with a bite taken out of you, where even when you're gonna get respawned, if you get respawned, you still respawn with the bite taken out of it? What happened? How did that happen? you know like, these are the types of details. Should I be reanalyzing the gag about somebody, oh no, you didn't take a bite of the apple before doing the video where you chop it down? No, I shouldn't be doing that. However, at the same time, I don't care. I will be doing that anyway. Nuke ends up swimming in the soup. Then the meat grinder team eventually manages to process 1,000 meats. They end up doing, I guess, pretty decently. So yeah, the Mario song. Then we end up having the team that gets written off, and then the cat gets saved. By the way, I just realized, okay, so the cat like speaks, and in the subtitles it's translated. It's like, yo, thank you for saving me. Have this token. You're supposed to watch this with subtitles, aren't you? Because like I was thinking, yo, these aren't like translated in the video. Like, if you turn off the subtitles, it literally just is a conversation between beep beep and the meow 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 meow. Like, there's no translation within the actual video file itself. Like, the subtitles are the ones that help us out, which is subtitles. Yeah, shout out to those. But then we end up having a and the owls upward. Look, that's my impression of the phone sound effect team. We have elimination. Then, as they're running away from the crab, we end up hearing that the final two, and then Cup of Joe ends up being like, "I'm tired of my team that pushed around all the time as if it was my fault that my team got entirely deleted and turned into the size of an atom. If I didn't do that for some fucking reason." So they decide to be cool because, fight scenes are indeed pretty swagger. So they end up ripping out their own handle and using that to absolutely demolish the crab. So they do pretty well. Look, fight scenes are swag. You gotta have one of them from time to time. Sure, why not here? Then we end up having ourselves the soup kitchen, which ends up doing pretty well until we run out of ingredients. We end up eating glass, which isn't great. Then we end up having the evil magic whatever from Tangerine. It ends up being too strong. You see, this is what I meant. If like, that team was formed based on trying to utilize Tangerine's power, right? Because the mystery of it was still really large. However, now we know how Tangerine's magic works. It does something to its extreme. So in a case where you just have to, I don't know, do the most of X or do the most Y, yeah. However, in certain situations that require a have like a Goldilocks zone, right? Where like you can't do too much. Like if it's something that you can't do too much of, um, no, I didn't say that right. No, if it's something where you have to hit a sweet spot and you can't do too much of it, then the powers aren't gonna be, because the curse powers do everything at maximum, just like max, right? So if it's something that has this type of requirement, it's not going to work. And they're asking them to do stuff like, sculpting and cooking, which are arts in a way, right? So it just doesn't work. Then the health inspector, which is announced from BFDI, and they're coming by and shutting down their kitchen. Poor souls. Then eventually the freaking ultra small Copper Joe yet again get the sass to charge up their energy and get the soda can into the trash can. Hole in one. Good job. So then they are safe, and the other team is up for elimination after getting up. So team emoji and they're going to jail, and at the same time also being up for elimination, which means that those 8 Apple earphones, Melanie, Nuki, PBC, Tangerine, Pillow, and Toasty are up for Elim. So, yet again, as you might notice, there are 8 people still up for elimination, which means that the current deaths of our 3 Elderberry cube, sorry, freaking cube fella, recovery cube, and the pop and the balloon end up still being not. They're recoverable, okay? They're still recoverable, because I just find it weird. Like, really, we're just doing that? I don't know. Like death is elimination. Like, that's just crazy to me. And the fact that that team hasn't gone up for Elim. The fact that that team hasn't been up for elimination. That team has been entirely the only thing that to have managed to be safe, right? Again, it still implies that they can get recovered. Like, there's time left. Like, there's time to fix this. Like, we are really not putting our eggs in the basket yet, Like, again, in my opinion, as soon as that team's up for Elim, then those people are eliminated, right? But with this, there's still time for them to come back, Like, there's still the time that they can return. Oh, God. Will they? At this point, maybe not. But it's just that it's so weird. Are we really having nobody else die for the rest of the series? Because because the thing about it, if it's the middle of the season and somebody dies, it's just gonna feel cheap, no? It's gonna feel like, oh, so that's it. They had the idea of trying to explode Nuki, and then Nuki dies. But then it's but if it's like episode 10 and that happens, then it just feels way worse. It's like if Elderberry gets eliminated, or the balloon, we don't currently care because it's been episode 1 and they only got like 30 seconds of screen time, right? However, we do care if we're talking like, the 10th episode, we've actually gotten characters that have fans and shit, and like getting ourselves into the big leagues, So that is like the situation that yeah, that is something, all right. I mean, yeah, I would personally make them come back, in my personal opinion of it. However, if they don't do it, they're gonna deal with something. They're gonna deal with problems. Okay. So yeah, Tide Party ran away. I mean, they were eliminated anyways, but I guess they just ran away. A can't really force them to go in there. They're too nice. You see, even stuff like the freaking TikTok that telling them to subscribe. Like, again, it sets the vibe of the show. It sets the vibe of the show, and it's weird to set the vibe of the show to this 3 episodes in. Basically, that's kind of the thing. Like, and again, it paired up with all of the other jokes of a similar vein. Again, we're complicating the matter, it makes the show feel way more jokey than it did before, which again was only weird because it didn't before. If it starts like this, like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's the identity, but it's weird when you switch up your identity in episode 3. It's like, hold on, wait, what is your identity? You wanted to do memes, okay, then why didn't you do memes earlier? Like, just do it then. Why did we suddenly in episode 3 decide, fuck it, meme time? I don't know, but okay. Anyways, Team Tick 2 end up being up for elimination. So who is getting eliminated? There is a global just fuck up of everybody. Like, who gets out here? This team didn't have a lot of screen time. This team actually had probably the least screen time because they really did. No, they had the least screen time. No, yeah, for sure. Because they had like the starting scene of them being like, of them buying the suit. We come back for them like ages in with them already in the kitchen after nearly everybody else has had a turn. Then we only get to see them afterwards when their kitchen gets shut down. I think. Right? So we only really get to see like 3 scenes with them in. So they're by far the team, I think, the least utilized team in this challenge. Which means that they're up for elimination, which is the exact opposite of what I think you should do, but either way, whatever. Personally, I'd eliminate Nuki because Nuki is not that interesting. Like the biggest jokes with Nuki that you could do is that, oh, they explode, so you have to be careful so that doesn't happen. However, now that we're doing a death equals elimination, so we have pretty much making deaths not possible in writing, in the writing department. Pretty much nobody's dying, right? For like 2 episodes at least, nobody has died, which means that we're pretty much just not writing deaths anymore. Then Nuki kind of just becomes pretty fucking uninteresting. So I'd probably eliminate Nuki for now. However, I could see Tangerine getting it. Okay, if people think that earphones are annoying for being mean to PBC, they could get out. And Tangerine did screw up by making it, like turning it into, by burning the soup. Okay, burning the soup is Tangerine's fault. Earphones' fault for being kind of dumb in general with the ingredients or whatever, and also potentially being mildly annoying to BBC. However, they have lines and they're charming in a sense. Everybody else, Melanie did good. Pillow didn't really do anything, and yeah, neither did Toasty. Those two, Apple, Melanie, Pillow, and Toasty don't really do enough. I think PBC doesn't really. I mean, PBC is kind of a downer. I guess I think people don't really like downers, right? People don't really like downer characters. I always like keep downer characters in. However, I feel like PBC might be too much of a downer. Yeah, I mean, if they want to be eliminated, I think people will vote for them. Okay, no, I think they're also in the discussion. Tangerine, will they eliminate Tangerine? I feel like they will. You know what? I don't want it to happen, to be honest, because I'm not a fan of Tangerine getting out. So I think Tangerine is the most interesting part of this team. However, I think from a viewer perspective, Tangerine did the most clearly visible mistake. So I'm gonna say Tangerine gets out. Okay, even though I don't want it to happen. I wouldn't consider it the correct decision from the viewers if they did do that. I think that's what they did. It's time for the modern era. It's time for the episode released the other day. AIF 4. A is for 4. It is titled DILL. Alright? Actually, before I watch that, I just want to give a super last claim about this episode. I think this whole identity thing is something that you kind of have to, like, a fandom isn't going to call you out on it, you know? In general, shows get a lot of praise for their memes because memes are immediately funny, right? I think that it has to be a decision from a more like proper department, from like a more serious department. Where no, serious department from how do I say this? I'm sorry, hold on. I do not know how to say what I want to say before getting into AS44 because I wanna say this before getting into it. That like basically a viewer enjoys memes, okay, because they're topical, they're from the moment, they're like, haha, this is the thing I know, right? However, like in general, whether you want to be known for the show that has memes in it is pretty much is a decision that the viewers aren't gonna tell you about, right? It has to be a decision that like you as in like showrunners and like the people who analyze it from within try to see, do we want a reputation to be, oh, this is the show that has the jokes for memes, right? Because a lot of the time when you think of a show, right, you think of moments in the show. So do you want to be known as the show that has memes? Basically, I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. However, it's like it's that debate. All right, A is for DILL. Let's go. All right, hello. I have come back from watching A is for 4, the episode known as DILL. All right, so let's give ourselves a chat about this episode. All right, because it is big difference. It is different. It is pretty freaking different from the previous episodes, and you can definitely feel it. From watching it, I did take a little bit of a break for a couple of hours, but after 3 before watching 4. So I mean, it is possible that that break impacts it. But I also had a break from watching 1 to watching 2, and I didn't feel that same shift. So you can kind of just feel it that it's got a different vibe to it because it looks different, it sounds different, the audio is mixed differently. The music, okay, all right. I always find it a little bit awkward to talk about audio mixing. Um, in these videos because I feel like it's a little bit subjective, and I'm not a pro on this matter, so I don't like to harp on it too much. However, I do think that the music was definitely louder than usual, and I think that in certain cases it did overpower, where in the other episodes it didn't as much, even though in the other episodes there was certainly music present, right, like for sure, but it wasn't. I feel like in this one it's a little bit louder overall. It is also, of course, you gotta remember, it's an impact of the ultra epic subtitles that were in AS4 1, 2, 3 are not present here, so that also, of course, impacts how much I needed to rely on the hearing itself, right? Which means that the louder music sometimes overpowered. It wasn't like no, everything was so perfectly understandable. It's just you could also hear the music pretty clearly. In my personal, honest opinion, I think that music can be very quiet, and it's honestly better, because especially for a show like this where a lot of it is not original compositions. A lot of it we're using Kevin MacLeod's classic tunes, right, or B.O.B. music, like that stuff. So I feel like for a lot of it we don't necessarily need to have the music constantly present. So I will point it out, as I think it is a little bit louder than usual. We also have the A plush. By the way, the A plush is available now for you to purchase. It's very faithful, to be fair. As far as plushes go, this A plush is very available over on objectshow.com. A shout out to objectshow.com, of course, for being fire. Last time I think we mentioned them was on the scrapbook, because scrapbook had the plush. But overall, yeah, shout out to objectshow.com. I don't know how new this plush is. When is it? 2 weeks ago. So yeah, shout out to that for being cool, doing all of that stuff. And then we have ourselves the episode switch. Yeah, in general, there's a bunch of assets changes. I think in terms of VAs, I believe majority of them are the same. At least, no, I think they're the same. No. I don't think any. Because no, I can't imagine a different voice director. I think the voices are fine, but we end up having some some solid stuff. Animation wise, we have a couple of changes, just kind of depending on style, style for style, person per person. There's some other animations, so we end up on other animators, so we end up having a couple of different styles also come into the series. But overall, it's pretty solid. So this episode, what do I think of this episode? Because as you heard me talk in episode 3, I gave big talk. Like majority of my conversation in the last episode was very clear. The last episode was super harped in on the joke by reference, right? Which is taking reference material and making jokes out of that. So when you make a Roblox joke, you're doing a joke to reference, right? Instead of creating the reference yourself, right? And I was like, okay, I mean, this is fine, but it's extremely different than 1 and 2, like to an extremely exaggerated degree in the writing procedure. But then I need to see, is that what they're going to continue with in episode 4? The answer is no. They've actually decisively, completely not done that. They have switched back over to creating reference material, which, as you see, they're doing something. like when a billion ball is a billion ball and they make the gag again, right? That like, oh, a character is questioning a billion ball. At the end of the day, that is a created reference. You have created a source, like you have created the source of a joke, and then you are using it later. You're cashing it in a couple of episodes in. Same thing goes, for example, for the flashback over at like the flashback joke where the billion ball does. Remember, that's the same. That's the same thing. Where we're taking a joke that this show has constructed itself, and we use that as our reference material, right? It's a show, and in my opinion, it is better than doing joke by reference because you get to properly, like, again, it gives that additional reward to a viewer watching because it makes the show funnier when you are paying attention to the show itself, because it's like, oh hey, it's the flashback thing from episode 2 again, but now it's cut off. Like, you see, like it pays you to give attention rather than joke by reference, where it might be fun in the moment, like, oh my god, they referenced Roblox, but it's not as rewarding to watch the show because you can just see that Roblox joke over in another video. Whereas this show specifically rewards you for watching itself when you do jokes of that caliber. So I absolutely recommend it. But again, I've said that a couple of times, but the thing about it is that I do like to say these things again when they appear in a show again, because, like, at the end of the day, nobody watches every review I do. So I think even if some statements are repetitive to me saying them, it's like, yo, did you really watch the episode of BFDIA 23? You realistically didn't, right? So anyways, we have the elimination time where we have ourselves our results. So Earphones actually wins with 736. And they end up in the deep fryer. Somehow they don't die in the deep fryer. How do they not die? Because they can't die for lore reasons. So we have to somehow make the joke that they got fried but didn't break, despite the fact that they're a technological product that getting dunked in boiling, frying water would absolutely, definitely break the product, or make some of the wires melt. But of course, we cannot kill characters anymore because of our decision, which means that we are firmly deep fried. Which oh well, it's fine. Melanie has like a haircut now, which is interesting. The apple now has a new design as well. You can see more of the inners of the apple itself, like the yellow part and the inside part of the apple. Do I prefer it as a design? I feel like it's better, to be honest. Like, it's a bit different. It gives a little bit of whiplash, but in general, it's pretty solid. Then we end up having our eliminated character not being Tangerine. Tangerine is actually easily safe, which I'm very happy with, because I was worried that the viewers were going to consider the Tangerine like the challenge loser for last time, even though they really didn't do much. But no, they were decisively pretty good. So okay, so who has new assets on this team? Brady doesn't. I think the PBC does, a peanut butter cracker. I think they have a relatively new design. Like, they just look a little bit different. But they don't get eliminated. Nuki ends up getting eliminated with 992 votes compared to 589. Big approver. Yes, I like that quite a lot. Because the viewers are understanding, Nuki is a tone deaf character in the way that this show has played itself out, right? With having deaf not to be an option anymore, right? As a decision that the show made, which means that, like, it makes Nuki an useless character because the joke is that they're extremely prone to dying. Right? So you can't make the prone to dying character die. You just make a character that isn't anything. So yeah, goodbye, Nuki. You have officially been firmly sent over to to the A whole land, which I don't even know if we're chilling over there, but yeah. Okay, let's look at this intro, because this intro should have theoretically every new asset in case they're there. Yeah, a lot of them aren't really new assets. I like how Tide Party does the move in the intro. Wait, is this intro new? Wait. Yeah, I think it's a commodity updated. Yeah. Does the word style have a new update? No, I think the chesty does. The key and now has a metal exterior. But yeah, we have a couple of little changes, but in general, we're remaining pretty solid. Okay, friend for some reason disappears. he left and wasn't coming back, but we end up having a new character drop in for the moment, a broccoli. I wonder if this is from another show. I remember I think there is another show that has a broccoli as a character, but so I wonder if this is a guest appearance. I don't think it is, but we end up having a fella called Friend, and then we set ourselves up to the challenge. Oh yeah, we have the joke of showing off the kids. Wait, what are the kids? Mailbox is just a piece of mail. This is a kid. What is fillers is a dead. It's a gravestone. Cat is a box of no cat. We don't talk about the next one. Pillars of feather. Billion ball, an egg. Okay, and then PBC is just a cracker in a box, and then yeah, okay, that's that's cool. Then we end up having ourselves the challenge, which is to get people out of a jar. We have put one person per team in a jar, get them out of the jar, and you are safe. That's it, pretty much. Which is a pretty alright challenge, to be honest. One team ends up being instantaneously safe, because we just end up having like Phil just immediately destroy it. So it was very fast, and also it indeed. Oh yeah, it had a Balloonbird recovery center in it. So technically, Balloonbird was the character in the jar. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, okay, yeah. I see. So they end up being the first team safe yet again. We are somehow 4 episodes in, and we have yet to dodge the. We're still dodging the officially eliminating the characters. I'm saying, I'm telling you, bro. In my opinion, as soon as that team is up for elimination, those characters are gone. However, in the way that we're working, these characters are not gone yet because that team doesn't lose yet. We are really stalling out. We're stalling out to an incredible degree. Are we gonna find a recovery center or are we not? We need a decision. Okay? We can't be stalling out this writing forever. Come on. We gotta get to something. Like, bro. But they end up being the first team safe. Apparently it's 5 cents to recover Balloonbird. By the way, big fan but oh my god, there's a recommended character. Balloonbird coming back. Wait, what do you mean recommended character? That's the freaking work on the show. You telling me the crew member can recommend the character? Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I really enjoy the gag of the money. Like, if you rip apart the dollar bill, it forms the money in coins. Yo, they should do that in real life. Low key. Low key fire plans. But yeah, Balloonbird is back, which is pretty nice. They end up dying pretty soon, but oh well. You gotta do what you gotta do. And then we end up having Earphones and PBC, which I guess they're a duo which has had a lot of screen time, and this episode gives them even more screen time. As in, it's a duo. It's more of a 1.5. Like, PBC doesn't care, and Earphones like, no, I must save you. And then they do that to various degrees of success. But Balloonbird is. I cannot remember Balloonbird's voice, because I was like, did Balloonbird's voice originally have a voice crack on it? And I was like, I don't remember. I cannot tell you, because honestly, they had so little screen time in episode 1 that I was like, I don't really remember, to be honest. But I mean, I'm sure they did anything. But eventually, we yet again have Tangerine do the curse of the bad luck, and it's not a great idea. It actually makes it fucking golden, because it's not great. Oh yeah, nice one, just what it's okay. Tangerine's power is yet again proven to be a big problem for this team because it is completely uncontrollable. It doesn't seem to do it. I don't know what is exactly going on. I'm starting to get a little bit of a feeling that Tangerine is throwing a little bit. I'm gonna be honest. I think Tangerine is being a little bit is fucking up on purpose. Okay, for the last 2, yes, but for this one, no, you can. I'm sorry. I think that you can, because at the end of the day, what was the strategy? the thing about it is that it does the power does stuff in extreme quantities, right? So like there's like, oh, boil the make soup. Okay, freaking burns the soup. You know, like it does stuff in extreme quantities. It should absolutely be able to do this challenge though, because this challenge you just have to break the jar. So like surely because you know, like the jar should be capable of opening. The powers have that capability, as far as I'm aware, right? From the context that I've seen, you know, especially, I mean, we saw that the power can literally break stone, like many stones, cause a little explosion. There's enough power there that it should be capable of breaking open a glass. Okay, like absolutely, especially since that glass is known to not be actually that strong. No, it's not actually that strong. Most people manage to break. I mean, Phil broke it in 1 second, right? So, like in general, I definitely think that in this case, Tangerine probably is throwing. I'm not gonna lie, because like to put the team under the bus, because it would make way more sense for Tangerine to be able to do this challenge than to not do this challenge in a writing capacity, right? Because like again, it's the powers are super strong, uncontrollably strong, but exactly that's what we need. We just need to break it. We don't. It doesn't matter how much force you break it, as long as it breaks. You know, like it's more than fine. So in this case, I disagree that it should be. Eventually, the team, which, oh yeah, by the way, I don't, they end up like growing back into regular size or something at the beginning of the episode. I completely glossed over that because I completely forgot about it. I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't think anybody does. So we're just gonna go with it. Okay, let's just go with that. They're normal size now. All right. So the idea is that they want to open a glass jar. They need to try to open it. Nobody can even get up there. So okay, now I don't understand. Is this water bowl, the fish bowl? Didn't you have a super stretchy omega arm? Was that not one of the things you could do? Didn't you grab somebody across the river one time? You did that, right? Yeah, that was episode 1, right? Like, cause yeah. Cause you would the Phil no, that was somebody else. Wait, was it? No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. No, yeah, that was somebody else. Wait, what? Who pulled Phil's nose? Don't remember. Who had the really long arm? Oh God. Because remember, they pulled the thing, and then we were like, oh yeah, pull him back. Yo, who did that? Yo, shit, I gotta look at it now, bro. No. Give me a moment. I'm sorry, I'm getting majorly sidetracked. Who did that? Who did that event? You know? Like who did this event that I'm on about? Okay, wait. Give me a moment. I need a moment to see what the moment is, so that I can have a moment, you know. Okay, I can't fucking see it. Hold on, give me a moment. I'll be back in a second. Okay, it was smoke detector. Yeah, very sorry for stalling out. It was smoke detector. What? It was smoke detector. That's like the least sensical thing. That's like the least sensical person for it to be, bro. What? That's crazy. I ain't even gonna lie, but I mean, all right then. If it is the way that it is, then I guess it is the way that it is, you know. But all right. Let's keep it moving. Where were we? Anyways, I thought you had a super stretchy arm. Maybe you don't, because I guess I confused it with smoke detector. But like I thought you could. But they do say that, right? Because like yeah, the Cup of Joe says it because it was like, oh yo, you can just lift me up, right? So I mean, I'm not 100% sure what we said about that, but all right. By the way, I do like the idea that mini. By the way, I do like the decision of putting tiny USB in the jar, because tiny USB in challenge 2, of course, was the only character capable of doing it. So at least now in the challenge like this, you become the only character that isn't capable of doing it, right? Like we take it, and we give back, you know. So that's kind of cool. So all right, let's see what we have. Oh yeah, we have a giant pickle jar opener, which just so happens that Cup of Joe made, but sure. I guess you did, even though. Hold on, but didn't you wake up like yes? Didn't you wake up like the? I mean, I don't know what the timeline is, but I thought you just grew out like that morning. But okay. What did they do? Oh yeah, landscape has a different landscape. Pick. That's what you're called. I keep calling you landscape. I'm sorry. Character from Animatic. I'm very sorry. Okay, I apologize profusely. But Pick ends up doing having a change of picture every time. I think we're using that as just like a thing where like it's a cool little side detail. However, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. It should be more than that. All right, I'm just saying. It should be more than just a cute little side detail. I think that can be lore. Okay, that can be lore. That can be important. That can be interesting things. Okay, and I think we should be taking advantage of those. Um. Okay, so interesting detail. Word salad for the first time gets fully 100% not understood, right? Because that has been one of the debates. Can people actually understand word salad, or are we just pretending to understand word salad, right? Like when a friend in the last episode goes like, "Oh, we have no, was it the last episode?" Well, when when they're going like, "Oh, we must turn you into stone." It's like, are we? No, it wasn't the last. It was the previous episode. It was episode 2. It's like, "Oh, we must turn you into stone." Did word salad even say that? I don't know, but in this case, we end up having a misunderstanding for sure, because you could kind of understand that, like, word salad was like, "Yo, fling the thing at the thing to break the thing," and instead you were like, "No, yes, lick it to open," which, yeah, indeed was not one of the top ideas of all time. And fish is still a rock from episode 2. You see, this is the incapability of having a character die is just, but we're still doing gags in the show that have stuff like that. It's just hard to deal with, Like, do you understand? For the sake of one decision, we have now, for example, have a character like Fishy, which was a vocal character, was an outspoken character, but now they've just been reduced to nothing. They literally can't do anything. And you gotta remember, for the sake of the show, if we wouldn't be having a recovery cube, they theoretically wouldn't realistically be coming back to normal ever. Unless we invent stupid reasons like growing out of the ground with a seed, but I guess they did do that. So maybe they will. I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's kind of, it feels like not having recovery as an option is shooting yourself in the foot. It feels like shooting yourself in the foot, because like you can go, "Oh, it's a bold thing," but it's not a bold thing, because you just end up writing it so that nobody dies. Well, we just have characters be incapacitated and disappearing and the other stuff. But it's like, no, they didn't die. They're not dead. We didn't do eliminations without your consent. You don't understand. We just turned you into stone and made you a statue that doesn't move and won't ever move. Don't worry, it's super different. Like it just doesn't feel right in that aspect. Like I think it's not a good decision. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've tried considering it. I think that new ideas the way is cool, and having an object show where like mortality does generally matter, right? Like if you die, you're out. It's not a bad idea. It's just, I feel like it's not a good idea for an animatic battle style show where there so many gags are dying. Like it's kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, hey, I'm glad to see A and B like getting along a little bit, having a little bit of a picnic. That's like kind of cool. Eventually they decide to stack. We have some guys who do the cohesion. We have 1 million balls trying to stack 1 billion balls, which it takes a little bit. Then we end up having some word salad just very annoyingly throwing the rock at the glass themselves, which is kind of cool. Then there's some cool animations here in the next batch of minutes. I don't know who did it, but they're cool. I like seeing filler like freaking bring themselves back into shape, or like the throw of Cup of Joe, like landing on the handle of the jar of the pickle jar opener itself, like from within the bowl. Like I think those types of animations, I really appreciate those, because like they're much they relate to the physics of the objects themselves, and I love me when we have when we're relating to the physics of the objects themselves. I think that's just epic. So yeah, eventually that team ends up being safe after the other jar, the one that's rolling down with PVC on it, ends up freaking crushing it. So that team ends up being safe, and then eventually, we end up having the previous the team with the Cup of Joe on it be capable of opening it with one big twist. All right, which is pretty nice. Eventually, Tangerine tries to gets the jar out of the way by also making it bouncy. I don't, man. Tangerine is kind of sus. I don't know. Tangerine is kind of suspect. I feel like Tangerine's got more control of these powers than I think, okay? And you'll be like, well, you don't know curses. Well, okay, alright, hear me out on this. I have actually currently reacted to, as of episode 50, 666 videos, okay? In 50 episodes. That's a pretty spooky number. I think I know me about curses. I mean, currently we're at 670, I guess, which, haha, number. No, yes, but like, because this is the 4 video, but like, I mean, then we end up having the twist. Then they need to get out eventually, the micro USB. However, we do a little touch, and the glass again disintegrates because I guess there was too much air. So then A eventually puts the other team up for elimination after they freaking fall off a cliff, which is pretty cool. Then we have our voting screen. Coolest voting screen yet, though. I wish the names were somehow available. To like, I wish the names were somehow written on the screen. But it is the coolest voting screen. Like the being them on a fridge, and then A is there, like the A that you put on the fridge. I used to have one of those. But yeah, I think it's cool. There's some new assets. I like. Does Melanie like that hair on Melanie? Is that just like permanent? That's just the asset. Like we were just saying, yo, Melanie should have hair now. Is that okay? That I mean. Cool, I guess. It feels like a pretty sudden change. But yeah, then we have the bit of apple, the tangerine. Wait, oh, they're getting a tomato thrown at them because nobody likes them. Yeah, I don't know if these are new, but some of them must be. Uh, and then eventually everybody ends up in the bowl because I guess the bowl has like harnessed the bad luck. Has harnessed the bad luck from tangerine. I guess, and yeah. So there we go. That is the episode. It is dedicated to Q. Uh Look, I'm presuming that's a person. Look, okay, I'm sorry. 'Cause we're in the object show where letters are characters. We're presuming that's this person. Shout out to Q. Um, but yeah, I just I just scrolled down to the top comment. So we all agree Roundabout was the highlight of this episode. True! Facts! Top 10 most written characters in Object Show history. And then they're in the credits or the voice actors as if they had a line. I see. Trying to sneak it in Roundabout. Come on, bro. I mean, where was Roundabout? Roundabout, like 2 episodes ago, walked into the jungle or something. Dude, the amount of characters that just aren't available, they're just out of commission. There's so many. Like, Roundabout is out of commission. Okay. Friend is apparently now out of commission. Who else is out of commission? Like, PBC was in this channel. We had 4 characters out of commission, of course, one for each team. Then the theoretically dead quote unquote characters of like Bloomber and Elderberry are out of commission. And Recovery Cube, I guess, is out of commission, right? Like there's a lot of characters out of commission. Fishy's out of commission, right? Like there's a lot of characters that just have been pretty much discarded for a lore reason, and it's like I don't know. I feel like again, in my opinion, this show is like definitely hurting itself a little bit because it's making decisions that are directly weakening its cast. Like I don't know. It's weakening its cast by making decisions that need to force characters to be less extreme. They make characters act more careful, and therefore in a show like this where it's fun to see wacky action, you end up having characters lose that like that excitedness, like extra thing, and it's like it's a bit weird. I think it was mainly the main decision of the show that absolutely brands over is the death of Recovery Cube, because that is like the big thing that causes all of this to happen. And in my opinion, it'd be better to have a recovery center. I think it is. I think it is. I heard the show out. I watched it, and I think it's better. But I think having recovery cube or some maybe not recovery cube itself, but just having a capability for characters to get recovered immediately opens up way more writing freedom, which for a show like this you kind of want. This is the type of show where you want to have freedom of expression with characters to make them do iconic things, because because when starting the show in episode 1, we didn't format a cast and a style that proned itself to mortality. Right, but now, it formatted itself around having characters be immortal. We literally have a character that's a fucking nuke that explodes everybody, right? So, in general, I don't understand it. I think it is the big problem of the show. I think. But in general, for everything else, stuff is fine. VAs are fine. Audio, I think, is mildly too loud in this episode. I think it needs to pitch itself down a little bit. And for other cases, we are doing fine in terms of the way that the actual characters themselves are written. It's pretty solid. I really like A. A is a very good host. I actually really enjoy A. To be honest, as a little bit of like a different style of host, a popular host, rather than some others which are they tend to be so mean. It's nice to have a little bit of a nicer one from time to time. And the characters themselves, they're cool, they're fun. I enjoy the characters themselves. I would just enjoy to see them act at their full potential, which they're not because they're stone. Like, yeah. But that is what I think about A is 4. It's pretty solid. It's pretty good. As far as shows coming back from big hiatuses, not necessarily from big hiatuses, from just like long production times, I think that this one manages to remain relatively solid. It doesn't come back with a big bang. So I'm not sure if people were going to be big fans of this episode. Right, because it doesn't come back with a big bang, and it's also super different than the last one, right? Because episode 3, for some reason, everybody making it was just like, hey, I saw this meme, we should put it in the episode. And then they only did that for episode 3, so they just end up putting 20 memes in episode 3 and nothing else in the other one. Like, we go 2 serious episodes, meme, and then back to serious episode. What happened in episode 3? Who was like, yo, let's meme this shit? I don't know. Who did that? Who was who I don't know. It's such a decision. But yeah. Okay. I've talked about AS4 for way longer than I have any right to be honest. This video is longer than it should be. The fact that this is an Omega episode is a bit crazy. But you know what? Big show gets big video. That makes sense, right? It's a big. I mean, hey, you can say it's not a big show. It literally has a plush, bro. That gives it big show material. 500K views, and that's so what? 500K. Ain't my videos even get 500 without the K. So like, bro, this big show for sure. So I get big video covering it. But yeah, that's all I can realistically think of to talk about for now. Let's go do ourselves an outro. That is going to be all for today's installment of Object Catchup. We are certainly busy for the next couple of days. We have Objectcember, which we're going to be significantly behind on. We still need to do the MCS video. That's, of course, awaiting. And theoretically, episode 51 originally was supposed to be request revelations. However, with this stuff to get to, we're going to need to make that wait just a little bit longer. Very sorry, 20 requests that you're gonna need you're putting on the back burner. However, I never forget. You just got away. All right, very sorry, but I mean, technically this is a request, but it was just I was covering it anyways. Like this was already the plan. The request doesn't change the plan, basically, right? If I cover something early and I don't directly say there's a request, that means that it was already the plan, right? So in this case, like the request doesn't actually change whether I covered it or not because I was already going to cover it, right? Because it was a big show that we had to take a look at. So yeah, that is all for today's video for AS4 or AIF. We are all caught up. See you next time. Goodbye.